Okay, so this is a quick rundown of patches 8.1. Brand, his passive's going to get double damage. That's actually a lot of damage. Mostly Brand is seen as a support right now, but he doesn't really fit the meta because either you're playing a tank support with Targons with the overheal meta, or you're playing Janna and Lulu, which are just really good supports for hyper carries, which are coming back. So Brand doesn't really fit that, so he's probably not going to come back unless this is insanely strong, which it doesn't look like it is. So nothing really changes for support Brand. For mid Brand, he gets a little more powerful, but mid Brand isn't really in the meta either, so Brand's probably still going to be completely dead. Evelynn, nothing changed. Graves, he gets a much stronger early game. Most of the thing that matters here is the 50% slow. It goes up from 15% to 50%. That's really big because when you gank a ranged champion, for instance, it's harder. They have to walk out of the smoke screen before they can start auto-attacking you. So it's going to make him a much better duelist. He can, for instance, if he needs to run away, if he's counter-jungling some people, he can put the smoke screen on areas that someone has to walk through in order to get to him. And the 50% slow makes a huge difference compared to the 15% slow. Or if he puts it through the path that someone has to walk through in order to get away, or just right on top of them. In all those situations, the smoke screen is so much more powerful now. The slow duration going down doesn't matter at all because that's not really the use for it right now. Then the Q mana cost and cooldown going down a little bit, that just means you can use it more liberally in the jungle and just have a faster clear speed. So Graves will definitely be really good, probably A tier, probably around the same level as maybe Rengar and people around there. Elise, Rengar, just A tier in the upper half. Heimerdinger, he lost 100 damage. Basically, his turret damage halved in the early game, and this really hurts Heimerdinger's burst potential at level 6, actually, where he puts the ultimate turret, and then he stuns you, and then throws the rockets at you, and he gets 3 lasers that way. So he'll lose 300 damage, or 200 if they don't get hit by the 3rd turret laser. And that's huge, right? It's like nerfing 200 damage off the base ult, because pretty much every Heimerdinger player can get that ulti combo. So that's really going to hurt him a lot. Heimerdinger probably won't see much play after this, though it won't completely kill him. His ulti damage is not entirely like why he's good. This is only for the laning phase, and specifically like the early laning phase, that this matters, right? When he has ultimate, maybe from level 6 to like level 9 or so, this change really makes him feel worse, you know, because when the enemy jungler ganks right now and Heimerdinger has ult, he can 100 to 0 somebody very quickly, and now it's not going to be that way. But in the mid game, he mostly just either he's split pushing or he is grouping with the team and poking with his rockets, and that's really where his strength is right now. And he doesn't even use his ultimate turret outside of the laning phase so much. Most people choose to use the grenade, the empowered grenade, for the AoE stun. So big nerf to his laning phase, right? But that might not necessarily kill him. Kayle, this actually looks like a buff because they're reducing the cooldown over E, you know, level 9, or, well, level 7 plus. And that's kind of annoying because it might end up being... Kayle actually gets... it's up for 10 seconds, I believe. I think her E's up for 10 seconds, and if it goes down to 14 seconds, then all you need is 40% CDR, and you get that Righteous Fury. Or maybe you don't even want 40% CDR necessarily. You can just get Nashor's Tooth and Ginsu's Rage Blade, and it's good enough, right? Because then you'll have, let's see, you'll have an 11-second cooldown thing. So yeah, just with 20% CDR, you'll have 1.2 second downtime on your E. And if you had, for instance, like 30%, let's say, it's 9.8. So you only need 30% CDR to get permanent uptime on your E after this change, which is really good because Kayle doesn't really want to build so much CDR, mostly just the Nashor's Tooth. Yeah, even if you take the 5% on Inspiration and just build Gnash of Tooth for 25%, you only have half a second downtime between your E. So this is actually going to be a lot. It's going to be make Kayle a lot more comfortable, I would say, in the mid to late game, where she, or even just, you know, level 9 plus, where you don't have this 2-second downtime or 3-second downtime where you can't use your E, because that's where her main damage comes from. The attack damage growth and the bonus attack speed going down won't really make a difference, because Kayle generally reaches a point, because she just builds full damage, that she can just kite somebody and whittle them down very quickly. So this will just be a buff. I don't think it really changes where she stands. It just looks like a quality of life change. So I think Kayle will be at a similar power level as she is right now. Skarner E is going up a lot in damage, and by 50% in the stun. That actually matters. The mana matters too, as well, for like the first clear, for instance, especially if you don't go Hunter's Talisman. If you go Hunter's Talisman, you don't feel the mana so much, but if you go Hunter's Machete, which will give you like the fastest possible level 3, I think, where you go buff, Wolves buff, or even buff Gromp, like blue Gromp, red, or red blue Gromp, because that keeps you in your Spire. That'll get you the fastest 3 with Machete, and so the base mana might help for that kind of playstyle. Going Machete, that might be what the mana changes. The proc damage going up by 5 all the way up to 110 actually means a lot. It's going to go up from by 45. And this is an ability he can actually use multiple times because of the way it cools down whenever you proc it. Plus also it's going up by 0.5 seconds CC. Most likely what happens to Skarner after this is people opt to go for a more supportive playstyle where they max the E and then they max their W or their Q or something, and they just pick people off, right? Because 1.5 seconds of stun is very long, actually, for how easy it is to proc. And so he could end up going back to being either just warrior into tanky items, or just you know, Cinder Hulk and then Righteous Glory, Locket of the Iron Solari and Knight's Vow and all that kind of jungler, playing kind of like a Nunu in a way, where you're just going for picks instead of peel. So more like a pick-oriented Nunu, which is what I would think would be very strong. Most likely the strongest build I would say to run on this guy is going to be somewhere, probably you'd want to run Warrior Enchantment and either Sunfire Cape or Righteous Glory or Dead Man's Plate. Say Sunfire Cape is very strong right now, and Righteous Glory is also just really good for Skarner to get in range for your ultimate. With the Predator changes, Skarner might also be quite nice. You might want to use Predator on Skarner, and then you might not need the Righteous Glory to get in range for your ult, because you'll always have Predator to get in range. So that might be what happens. Skarner might be a Predator user and starts building a little more support oriented, because one of the things that happens is you can go Predator and secondary and resolve, and you'll get some starting health that'll allow you to start Talisman and get the full effect of the Talisman. So he might just be able to farm both jungles really fast. That's one thing that really changed with the resolve changes. It makes Talisman so much better of a start. Right now it's only Hunter's Machete. So that'll be something that'll make Skarner quite good. I'd say he's probably the bottom half of A tier, just because of how easy he is to play around, or maybe at the top, towards the top of B tier. Once my tier list comes out, he seems like he'll be pretty good, actually. And the way you want to play is just kind of farm. Like maybe you look for level 3 gank on overextended lane. Like you could gank your lane that has the most prep set up for you, or the one where enemy lane is most likely going to be pushing into you. and path towards that, get the level 3 gank, and then just really try to like farm both jungles, because that seems to be what he's going to be able to do with the machete changes. I mean, not the machete changes, but the talisman. Resolve changes are going to allow talisman to get the full 50 heal or whatever. So he's never going to run out of health, I imagine. That's going to be the strongest way to play him. Either to rush, get machete, get your 3 camps, and then gank. Recall, go get your Hunter's Talisman, farm both jungles, something like that. Or even just start Hunter's Talisman and just go for a straight farming mentality. Will be pretty strong. Farm to 6 and use Predator in order to gank. Yeah. Syndra. This doesn't really change anything. Syndra's not in the best spot because right now the meta is overheal, and it makes it really difficult for Syndra. Actually, like, she normally overkills targets, but when your targets are getting shielded for so much and healed for so much, because it's a meta where you have Tahm Kench and Shen and Janna and Lulu as supports that really prevent someone from getting like single target nuked by some kind of delayed burst that Syndra has, right? Because her ultimate is actually, you know, for instance, if Tahm Kench eats somebody who gets Syndra ulted, it's pretty easy to do that. So Syndra's like in kind of an awkward spot like that. Plus a lot of the matchups that are popular right now. For instance, like Syndra can't lane very well into Vladimir, who's very popular right now, and she can't lane very well into Zed. So she's not in a good spot, regardless of whatever the bug fixes did. Trap time. So Zoe is by far the strongest mid laner at the moment, just because of how even if she loses lane, she'll reach a point where she can just find solo kills on players in the mid game and late game. Even as like support Zoe, you'll be able to find solo kills with just like a Merlin Omicron or some just a little bit of AP, which is kind of absurd. So the changes for Q, this is actually the most important change here. Right now, how Zoe uses her ability is she uses Q, she Qs backwards, and then she Qs forwards, and then she'll jump. And she'll jump after she shoots her Q, or after she redirects her Q, and for whatever reason, that makes her Q go further and deal more damage. And so what's going to happen is this Q apparently is going to be doing less damage when she does that. So she's going to have to be more telegraphed in order to make the Q work that way. Because right now it seems that Zoe can jump like after her Q has traveled its full duration, and then it'll just keep traveling a little more, and then she throws in an auto attack. So they're making it to where that window where you can jump with your ult to extend your Q range a lot smaller. I hope it's a lot smaller. And that's going to make Zoe basically stick her head out a little longer when she goes for picks, which will be nice, but that probably won't be enough to make her balanced. Her Sleepy Bubble Trouble, this, I think the 0.2 seconds here is that sometimes when you dodge the ability and you like move perpendicular, when it turns into the trap, it becomes like a big circle on the ground. Sometimes when you dodge the ability, it'll still clip you with that bubble, and you'll get slept. And that 0.2 seconds probably prevents those situations almost always. The R portal jump, I don't think this really does anything. So her power level goes down slightly, but she's still probably the best mid laner to be playing right now, just because of how in the mid and late game, the way that her E can just be thrown through walls at ridiculous ranges, and her Q has ridiculous range and ridiculous damage. She's still going to be the strongest mid laner. And just like one of the strongest champions in general, just because, yeah, it doesn't matter whether she's ahead or behind, she's always going to be really good. And when you have a champion like that who has a lot of like good situations to be in, that's just very difficult to play against. Predator is just going to get a little better. Not a lot of champions use Predator. Like Hecarim, some junglers like Hecarim, Warwick, Skarner have tried Predator, Olaf. They might continue running them. Skarner especially, I think, Skarner and Hecarim might actually make somewhat of a resurgence with the way that Resolve is changing. Resolve is now going to give 65 health. Like if you take Resolve secondary or if you take Resolve primary and something else secondary, you'll get a little bit of stats like attack damage or ability power or attack speed or whatever you chose. And then you'll get a little bit of health as well. A little bit of health, you might think 65 health, that's not a big deal. And it's not, except when you look at Hunter's Talisman, it says if you have bonus health from any item or effect, you will get like an extra benefit for Hunter's Talisman, right? It'll deal like double damage, I think. And so that will make Talisman using junglers a lot better. So you'll see like Rengar actually, even though he's like insanely powerful and nobody wants to hear that Rengar is getting better, it actually will make Rengar a lot better at power farming than he is right now, because right now he can clear the jungle decently fast, but if you give him the ability to go, for instance, either he goes Dark Harvest for maybe a more power farming style or just Electrocute, which is the standard, and then he takes Resolve secondary, which he might consider doing that if he's in a certain matchup and just wants to power farm. He can start Talisman, and he'll basically never be pushed out of the jungle because of the way that the healing is amped up by reaching that health increase thing, as well as it kind of supplements the clear speed. So if it actually ends up increasing his clear speed, then that will actually become the meta, I believe, and Hunter's Talisman will become the faster of the two items to jungle with. Right now everyone likes Machete. That might change just because of the way that Resolved is getting changed, as well as the junglers might change a little bit more AoE oriented junglers instead of single target junglers. So Predator, though, it's most likely not going to be used. This doesn't make people who didn't run Predator before want to run Predator now, but just the champions that kind of considered it maybe become a little more powerful, or for instance, Vladimir would consider Predator, or Ivern would consider Predator, and maybe now with the changes, how it's getting a little extra effect, and it goes on like half cooldown when it's interrupted, as well as the quality of life, like area of effects, proccing on the person who's most likely to die. It might be worth considering. The little adrenaline, like added movement speed boost, that's actually, I don't think it matters, but it's just something extra. And something I'm really a fan of is using Ghost to get back to lane. And Predator is basically a Ghost to lane keystone. And so any extra movement speed you can, it shaves seconds off of your time back to lane. That can mean minions, which can, it will mean that you get more gold over the course of the game. Resolve stat bonuses. This is the biggest change, and this is actually why I didn't make a tier list, because I didn't know how to accurately, because there's so many champions that could be potentially affected, and I couldn't think of like every single situation without spending like huge amount of like brain effort and Illuminati confirmed kind of science. So I'll just get basically what I think is going to happen. What's happening is when you take Resolve primary or secondary, you're going to get some health. And whatever other thing you have, primary or secondary, it'll give you a little bit of stats from that. You take Inspiration, you're going to get all health. If you take Sorcery or Domination, you're going to get adaptive stats plus health. If you take Precision, you're going to get attack speed plus health. And this is going to matter on champions who, for instance, wanted to take... So tanks, they want to take Resolve, right? But maybe now, since they're getting health with everything, if they take just one part Resolve, you can now see Ornn, for instance, run Arcane Comet, which would make him win matchups, maybe against like Jace or Gnar or something. In these range matchups, having Arcane Comet could be really good, because he throws his Q or he uses his W, and it throws a comet at them, and it makes his laning phase so much more annoying and powerful. And he gets a little bit of AD, which Ornn can use. For instance, like he can use his AD because his auto attacks are part of his kit, as well as his Q has 100% AD ratio. So that's something I'm thinking of. Ornn could, for instance, run Comet, or in other situations like that too, where tanks could end up running a different keystone outside of the Resolve tree, as well as bruisers who really want the stats can start running Resolve Tree and still get their starting health. For instance, Riven could be running Aftershock or Grasp, and using, for instance, because it's very easy for her to proc Aftershock with her AoE stun or knockup, and she gets good trades. She also gets attack damage, which gives her more shields, and very nice for her. So you'll see bruisers that would like to run maybe some of the keystones in the Grasp or Aftershock, move over to Resolve primary and start using some of those keystones. And off the top of my head, some champions that might like doing that is Renekton with Grasp or Aftershock. Renekton can proc both of those very easily, and he'll still be able to get some attack damage, which will increase his kill pressure in lane. Riven with Aftershock. Any champion basically that can proc Aftershock would probably consider going it now. Maybe not in every matchup, but a lot of champions, just some easy to proc CC, can really benefit from going that tree now, and it's much more serious thought to do it. As well as what else this does is in mid lane, people can't really go Resolve secondary, or they're going to get health. And they don't really want health unless they find out that health is really useful and it's good. So if, for instance, you're playing a burst mage, people can't go Resolve, or they can't take that MR thing against you unless they want to get that health too, which they might. Actually, they might be even better at neutralizing kill pressure on champions like LeBlanc or just anybody who has kill pressure, to have a little bit of extra health. So this does give mages an even more defensive option against hard lanes, right? Or it will dissuade some people from taking the defensive route, and they won't get the second wind and the magic shell and all that. So, oh, and then the last thing I'm thinking of is in the jungle. A lot of champions in the jungle, like for instance Rek'Sai, would love to run Aftershock, but it slows down their clear speed too much, right? Well, with the way that you can pair Aftershock with a different tree and now get some stats over there, maybe Rek'Sai can start running Aftershock in the jungle and keep up in clear speed, as well as other champions running mostly Aftershock, I'm thinking, because junglers can set up tower dives really easily if they have, Aftershock to give them a bunch of resistances. And other junglers like Sejuani were running Fleet Footwork. And Fleet Footwork gives a lot of attack speed, right, because it's in the precision tree. As well as the active was pretty nice with the heal and the movement speed to keep someone in range for Sejuani to get her icicle proc. That's really powerful, but now either Sejuani can take Resolve secondary and get some of that extra health to make her Hunter's Talisman even better. She'll probably jump up to being S tier and like the best jungler potentially because of this, with either Fleet Footwork, or now she can run Precision secondary as a primary running Aftershock and still get some of that attack speed to better her clear speed. So those tank junglers, they got a lot better, and the best one right now is Sejuani, and Rammus is like a pretty close second, and he can do a similar thing, but he really wants to run Aftershock, so that's something worth considering. Of course, there are a lot of things to think about, but just like I try to focus on what's going to be the best of the best. The bug fixes, there were some things that mattered in here that I noticed. Rengar, for instance, I think he can't use his Hex Flash with his jump range, so he can't do that thing that where he channels Hex Flash in a bush and then jumps from the mid lane side bush all the way to the middle of mid lane. He can't do that anymore, which I don't think it was a big deal. I thought it was like a really cool feature, and I didn't even think it was that strong. But you can't do that anymore for whatever reason. That's something to note. If you're a Rengar player, do not run Hex Flash anymore. And is there anything else? Yeah, can't use Hex Flash. Um, Galio shield. This would actually. I don't know when this bug happens, but Galio losing his W shield and it's not happening. Galio is a champion who was seeing some more play now, and actually with the resolve changes would be a little better because in mid lane tank and having the starting health, he might be able to go Aftershock now and still have some starting ability power, right? Aftershock and then secondary and then a sorcery or domination or something, and still have ability power so he can shove the lane, because right now they mostly run Comet, which gives more kill pressure, and that's good, but maybe they can get away with Aftershock now, which is really good, or even become even harder to push out a lane because they'll have some starting health with Resolve secondary and running Comet. Gangplank's Q, I think what this is happening, what's doing, there's an annoying thing with Gangplank Q where if you shoot a minion and the minion like dies during the cast time of your pistol spins the mana and it goes on cooldown and you don't even shoot a bullet out. It's really annoying. I think they fixed that. I don't know what this means, but I hope that's what it is. And then the GP glitch, or where you could use the double Gangplank ult, where you fire your ultimate and then buy Raise Morale and it resets your Gangplank ult. That doesn't work anymore, so don't try to do that. You will not get a second ultimate. Cho'Gath E apparently stops in power. The Cho'Gath E apparently blocked auto attacks, and that's probably why I was losing a bunch of lanes as Camille versus Cho'Gath, when normally that's a good matchup. And now it all makes sense to me. It wasn't my fault. The game was broken. Ornn got a slight nerf. Nidalee got a slight nerf. I don't know if this means that, so Nidalee Cougar takedown no longer damages enemies if it's empowered attack aside. I don't know if that means if you can flash and now Nidalee's Q will stop. If that happens, that's so bad for Nidalee. I don't even think they should have done that, but if that's what happens, where if you can flash the auto attack for her Q, then that's really lame. If this is just talking about like Jax with the dodge there, or Shin with the W and dodging Nidalee Q like that, then that's fine. But that would make sense. But who knows? If it's what I'm talking about, like you just being able to flash Nidalee Q on the Cougar Bite, then that's a huge nerf to Nidalee, and it reduces her consistency to secure kills by a lot. And I don't think anything else matters.